Welcome. My name is Mr. Sunarine, and today's lesson is going to be how can measurement conversion tables be helpful in solving multiplicative comparison word problems. Before we get into today's lesson, I'm going to go over some reminders that will be very helpful in understanding how to work through these math word problems. First reminder is think about the word problem. What units are you starting out with, and what units will your answer be in? When you read the problem, you'll notice that the units you start out with is going to be different than the units that the problem wants you to have your answer in. And the last part, the last reminder, is read the word problem to understand the situation. This might mean you may need to read the problem several times, annotate, highlight, underline keywords that will help you understanding what the problem's about. So now we're going to get into some word problems and see how we can use these helpful hints to help us get to our solution. Helen has 4 yards of rope. Daniel has 4 times as much rope as Helen. How many more feet of rope does Daniel have than Helen? So pause the video, think about how you would work through this word problem and see what your solution is. On the next slide, we'll compare your answer with the ones I provided. So in understanding this problem, we could break out the problem into different pieces. We know that in the start of the word problem, we start out with yards. At the end, our answer needs to be in feet. So the first thing what we can do is convert the first part, Helen has 4 yards, into feet. We notice that this helpful conversion table is right below here. We know that 1 yard equals 3 feet. So we're going to take that 4 and we're going to multiply it by 3 to get the number of feet Helen has of rope. When we multiply 4 times 3, we get 12. Helen has 12 feet of rope. The next part of the problem talks about Daniel. Daniel has 4 times as much rope as Helen. And when we see 4 times, that tells us multiplication. So we're going to take the value of Helen and multiply it by 4. So Helen's value is 12, so we're going to say 12 times 4 gives us 48. Daniel has 48 feet of rope. The last part of the problem tells us how many more feet of rope does Daniel have than Helen. So when we see how many more, this tells us that we're going to be doing some subtraction. We're going to take the value of Daniel and the value of Helen. We're going to subtract it, and we get 48 minus 12 gives us 36. Daniel has 36 feet of rope more than Helen. Okay. Now we're going to move on to our second problem. Joyce bought 2 pounds of apples. She bought 3 times as many pounds of potatoes as pounds of apples. The melons she bought were 10 ounces lighter than the total weight of the potatoes. How many ounces did the melons weigh? So pause the video, think about how you would work through this problem, and we'll compare our answers on the next slide. So here we notice that we have a conversion table of 1 pound equals 16 ounces. And what we can do is we're going to convert pounds into ounces because it tells us how many ounces does the melon weigh. So the first part is we're going to convert 2 pounds of apples into ounces, and we're going to take 2 multiplied by 16 gives us 32, and therefore we know that Joyce has 32 ounces of apples. The next part of the problem talks about potatoes. She bought 3 times as many pounds of potatoes as pounds of apples. So when we see 3 times, that tells us multiply by 3. We're going to take the previous answer of 32 and multiply by 3, giving us 96. So we know now that Joyce has 96 ounces of potatoes. The last part of the problem tells us that the melons she bought were 10 ounces lighter than the total weight of the potatoes. So now we're going to look at the value of the potatoes, and when we see lighter, that means subtraction, and we're going to subtract that value of potatoes by 10. So here we notice that the weight of potatoes is 96. We're going to subtract 10, giving us 96 minus 10 gives us 86, which is the melons weigh 86 ounces. Okay, we're going to go through our last problem. Colton's puppy weighed 3 pounds 8 ounces at birth. The vet weighed the puppy again at 6 months, and the puppy weighed 7 pounds. How many ounces did the puppy gain? Okay, so pause the video and work through this problem, and on the next slide, we have our solution. Okay, so when we're looking at this problem, there's a lot of important information, but what I did was highlight important information that's relevant to getting us the answer of this math word problem. The first thing we notice that is Colton's puppy weighs 3 pounds 8 ounces. We have pounds and ounces, so what we can do is convert pounds into ounces, and we're going to multiply 3 by 16. The 8 is already in ounces, so we don't have to do anything there. So here we could do 3 times 16 plus 8 gives us 56. So at birth, Colton's puppy is 56 ounces. We know that part of the problem tells us in 6 months they weighed the puppy again. And here, the important part, the puppy weighed 7 pounds. So we're going to convert pounds into ounces, and the best way we can do this is we're going to multiply 7 by 16, giving us 112. So as of 6 months later, Colton's puppy is 112 ounces. The last part of the problem tells us how many ounces did the puppy gain. So what we're going to do is compare the two weights, the one at birth and the one 6 months later, and we're going to subtract it. We want to know that value when we subtract it is how much weight is gained by Colton's puppy. So we take 112 and subtract 56, and we get 112 minus 56 gives us 56. So Colton's puppy gained 56 ounces in 6 months. Okay, now we're going to go into our summarization. How can measurement conversion tables be helpful in solving multiplicative comparison word problems? To summarize, measurement conversion tables helps us determine the number of units we need in order to solve the problem. And here's an example based on the previous problem we did. Hope this was helpful and have a great day.